about the women leaders in a post COVID-19 world. And I hope you will respect the protocols of the webinar. Please mute your mic and the camera during the webinar. You can use the chat box for the questions and the comments. This webinar is being recorded and presented through live stream that you can find through the social media sources of University of Education. I'm delighted to introduce you with the guest speaker of today, Ms. Madiha Sajid. Very warm welcome, Madiha, and thanks for joining with us. Madiha is a fellow of Higher Education Academy in UK, and she works at UCL, University College London. She is the founder and chair of UCL Parents and Carer Together Network, which has more than 700 members. She has won the prestigious UCL Excellence Award for demonstrating exceptional leadership skills in supporting parents. She sits on several committees and working groups, including gender equality. She is a regular guest speaker at events across higher education sector. Groups invited talks about inclusive education, gender diversity, work-life balance, and equal opportunity. Thank you so much, Madiha, and very warm welcome. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Sadia. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. Special thanks to University of Education Lahore. Special thanks to Sadia. And I know that the IT team has been working really hard, so my thanks to them. My name is Matiha, and today I'll just be talking to you about my experiences and about my insights about women in leadership in a post-COVID world. But before I do that, I have a special request to make that as a parent, I had some change of plans very late last night. It is my daughter's exam today, and the school coach said that they could not pick her up. So I will have to do the school drop off now, which means that I have to reduce the time that I had dedicated to speaking with you today to about 40 minutes. I hope that will be okay. I hope we will still get through whatever I had planned to do. So please do forgive me. I apologize in advance. But I'm sure you will all agree that parental responsibilities, family responsibilities come right at the top of our agenda. Okay, so without further delay, I'll get started. That's me. So, advancing women leadership in a post-COVID world. My name is Madiha. My Twitter is Madiha Sajid UCL. I am the gender equality lead for University College London. So a bit about me. Like I said, I'm gender equality lead for UCL. I'm the chair of the Parents and Carers Together network. I'm also the chair of Athena Forum at UCL, which is an initiative for gender equality. Other than that, I'm also a positive health and well-being manager. So I wear quite a lot of different hats, but that doesn't really tell you much about me. This is the reality. Apart from my professional hats, I'm also a mother to a daughter. I'm also the daughter to a set of parents. I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a friend in need, I'm a cook, and today I'm also a very good driver, I hope. And I think the last one will resonate with you. I'm also the emergency bank for my daughter. Whenever she needs something, she's really quickly, turns on her best moods forever. So today's session, I will briefly talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the careers of women. I'll quickly go through some barriers that exist, structural barriers that exist between women's journey and leadership. And then the third part will be dedicated to revisiting the women in leadership agenda. The impact of COVID-19 on women's careers, I think, globally, 39% of women are in employment. And during COVID-19, 54% of women account for overall job losses. This means that more than half the jobs lost were women actually. And in Pakistan, the women workforce is actually less than 30%, but the impact of COVID-19 has been well documented throughout the last many months. And I'll quickly show you some snippets. The United Nations reports finds that most countries have been failing women and girls with their response to COVID-19. Another international thinking tank has suggested that COVID-19 has thrown the gender division of work into a very sharp relief, talking about how differently it has impacted men and how differently it has impacted women. There's also another report that a lot of the research studies that are now coming up, they are actually written by men. So women are actually declining their research and their productivity has declined during COVID-19. No surprise there. One report suggested by King's College London, it shows that women have been marginalized in COVID-19 media coverage, which means that whatever they have been doing, the research specifically, their voices, their expertise have been sidelined. And I want to draw your attention to this recent research study, Hidden Figures, which is by the Women's Higher Education Network, which I'm a part of. The first infographic shows you that 78% of mothers, they have reported challenges in managing childcare and paid work. No surprise there. If you look at the second infographic, it is about the, the, the caring responsibilities at home, whether that's children's activities, whether it is helping with schoolwork, whether it is preparing meals, whatever that is, you will see that women on the right hand side, they have taken on more than half, for example, 75% at the top of these responsibilities. If we continue to talk about this research, dividing the domestics, again, women are at the top, meal planning, childcare, cleaning and tidying, they have taken on more than half of these responsibilities. And as a result, their career has been impacted massively. More than 90% women have reported that they have felt the pandemic has affected their career in the next 6 months or so. And I think there's a report that says that women's careers have been affected for years and years to come now. They have really fallen behind. Quickly bringing to your attention the direct impacts of COVID-19 on women's career. First of all, everybody had to work from home. Everybody had to go into a lockdown, which resulted in childcare, elder care, caring for your parents, caring for your partner's parents, household responsibilities, caring for babies and infants. That is a really, really difficult set of challenges. Homeschooling children, unrealistic workloads, managing very, very tight deadlines. And then I think we have to keep in mind that not all women, not all families have the ability to work from home in terms of the physical setup. For example, there are not many laptops or computers available at home. There's a lot of isolation experience, particularly for single parents, because there's not a lot of support. Then also, some families have reported that there is no immediate family members around. So there is a lot of significant lack of support. Some parents have also been found really, really stressed out about exams for their older children. Some families have reported that they constantly worry about their own parents because they are at an age which is really, really very vulnerable. This continues. I'm sure you will agree with this. COVID-19 had a lot of impact on our mental health and well-being. Our work-life balance has been disrupted. Whilst we're all working from home, we have lost that boundary between being able to switch off from work. So, for example, I found myself working very, very long hours only because now I'm at home, so I can go back to my laptop, I can open my phone, I can start working at any point in the day. And then again, bringing to light the emotional cost of caring, it's really, really hard, really challenging to be able to provide care for your children, for your partner, for your family. The constant guilt of ignoring family if you are working, and then if you're not working, the being with your family, then you're thinking about, oh my God, I should be working. This has all put a really big strain on relationships within families. You know, in UK alone, I know that the divorce rate has actually gone up. There is increase in numbers for domestic violence and abuse. So I think in a number of ways, it is very, very safe to assume that COVID-19 has impacted women's careers. Now let's add to that the barriers, the already existing barriers to women's journey to leadership. We are all aware of these. I don't need to go through them again. Lots of cultural barriers, for example, women not having a voice at the senior tables, lots of barriers as in the stereotypes that we all live with. the work family responsibilities that come with they're part of the package really. The distance and the traveling to workplace between home and work, that is a really big barrier that we have seen often. And then of course, very important, the lack of leadership opportunities. So in this mix, through all the previous factors I have been talking about, the burden that women had to face when they are working from home, the added responsibilities of childcare, of elder care, of household chores. Somebody has got to do the cleaning, somebody's got to do the cooking, and I think you will all know how difficult it has been during the lockdown. And I think sometimes it's really important to also mention that besides the already existing barriers, which were there even before COVID came, there are some other barriers also, which we don't always keep in mind. First of all, there's lots of invisible and additional responsibilities that women take on without any recognition. They have got this innate feeling of nurturing, which kind of makes them put themselves forward to ask for more work at home, more work responsibilities at work, for example. They would take on more responsibilities at home, and often there is no recognition. And then again, in some ways, research tells us that the female mindset is that work more and work harder, but the problem is when there is no recognition for that. Mostly we know that leadership positions in UK and in Pakistan, I'm very sorry to say, they are male dominated. So females have to work twice as hard to break through those glass ceilings, to kind of make that transition from middle management to senior leadership. For women, there's often less time to do networking, to do research, to promote themselves. Why? Because of all of those factors we have just spoken previously. And again, research tells us that men progress quicker. What does the evidence tell us? The evidence tells us that if there is a job that has come up, for example, and if there's a man considering that job, and if they find they meet about 65% of the criteria, they'll apply for it. They'll very confidently go for it. And on the other hand, women, they tend to feel more held back, and they'd rather that they meet almost 100% of the criteria, if not 80 or 90%, to be able to even get close to thinking about applying for that job. And often we have seen that men progress through quicker because of this, that they do not wait for them to be able to meet the criteria 100%. Again, research tells us women are very, very less likely to be included in decision-making processes, as they are often underrepresented in committees, they're often underrepresented in departmental groups, in senior management. There's not a voice they have. And they are more likely to be kept out of the information loop in universities, and because of the same reason that they are not in decision-making positions, that's why they do not get the information, or when it comes down to them, it's very watered down. So also to bring to your attention, when women are putting together their CVs, the general trend is that the CVs are quite different. It's very gender neutral language. And actually research tells us that when there was this very interesting research that came out, I think 3 months ago, that when men are putting their research forward, they would use words like, I designed a study and I led the team to this. Whereas for women, they would use more collaborative approaches. They would say, we worked as a group to get to XYZ. So the language that we use is really important, and it has been shown that female CVs are very different to male CVs. They're more softer in approach. Job design, sometimes there are so many jobs that I have seen, they're really, really gendered. They're really, they're set up for one particular group of people. So that's really, really important to avoid those gender traps. And there's a sort of an opportunity to simplify the job designs so that more men and women both are equally encouraged to apply for those. I've often seen, and I've often said no to all the panels where I have been asked to join if they're all men. I think I have questioned that where is the gender equality, or at least where have you tried to be gender equal? And that is not on. If you are asking me to participate, or if you're asking me to contribute to something, there has to be a level playing field. And often I've seen that there is something about the humanistic encouraging, which means that you develop knowledge and skills of people, you support them, you take time for them. I've seen that strongly between a woman to woman. I have not seen that really strongly existing between a man and a woman in a professional capacity. And I can appreciate that there are cultural cultural stereotypes to that. But I think we will take a deeper dive into how we overcome that barrier. Again, talking about the lack of understanding of criteria for promotions, how that is applied. I have seen so many applications for promotions in which the applicant has not necessarily understood the criteria, or even if they do meet the criteria, they have not really portrayed how specifically they meet that criteria. And that's a really, really important point, because that essentially means that you're setting yourself up to fail if you're not being able to communicate how specifically you meet that criteria. There is a role for universities, for academic institutions in developing staff, for creating programs for the development. Do they understand the needs of staff? Are they being fair and consistent? Does every time do their favorite people get to go to conferences? What about the junior staff? Do they get any go in the whole pot of funding that's available? Are meaningful conversations happening, or are these just tick box exercises? For people to be able to progress further, they need a lot of nurturing, they need a lot of support, but sadly, we don't see that happening very often. Line managers have a really important role to play. Do they know how to develop women in their team? Are they giving them any opportunities? Are they taking them forward? Are they pushing their agenda forward? And finally, the leadership, senior leadership, the glass ceiling. I'm sure you'll all agree with that, that it is really hard to smash through that barrier. Are there any unsaid rules about that being protected for people who really kind of are at the top and who can make a difference, but not really open and fair to everybody? So I think we've quickly gone through part two of my presentation, which was a bit about talking about the barriers that we face. And I think we sort of discovered when I was, in fact, writing this presentation as well, that even before COVID came, things were not rosy for women, particularly for women in leadership. They were really hard. And if you add COVID 19 into the equation, it makes it three times more harder. But at the same time, what we have seen, particularly here in the UK, that there's a shift in paradigm. After COVID 19 and during COVID 19, we have seen that there's a dial shift in how now women are being, I suppose, considered for leadership, what they bring to the table. And then there's a very, very important role for allies, mentors, and sponsors. Let's quickly go through them. Advanced HE is an international think tank again in UK, and one of their research says that COVID can create paradigm shift for female leaders. How? First of all, women leaders have known to bring compassionate leadership to the table. The unique leadership perspectives that women bring to the table could create a platform for more inclusive, more compassionate leadership, which is still able to take tough decisions, and it's the kind of leadership we will need in the future. Working from home. Women leaders, again, they have expressed that working online has removed many barriers and biases, despite having many challenges of how to work from home, actually, which is probably another conversation. But actually, working from home has really opened up a lot of opportunities and for connections, collaborations, which were not possible before. For example, I'm talking to you today from thousands of miles away. This is a possibility. This is which we have considered now, which we did not probably consider last year, because in our minds, working from home was not as effective as it could have been. And then they talk about the third thing, which is to challenge existing work patterns, to make work and family responsibilities easier to manage, how we communicate with people while we are distant, how we develop a healthier lifestyle, and how we keep a female perspective while we develop policies. That's really important. So these three things have really been thought to be the paradigm shift into how women leadership will look like in a post-COVID world. I quickly want to touch on the role of allies, sponsors, and mentors, and this remains valid with or without COVID. It always remains valid. So I hope that you will be able to differentiate between the three. An ally is somebody who proactively offers help and support to help you achieve your goals. It's usually a friend at work, somebody you can discuss your salary with, somebody you can discuss which job you're going to apply next, somebody who will actively encourage you, who will pick you up on your bad days to say, you've got this together, you're doing good, you should keep going, and who will be able to listen to you in a very friendly manner. And that's really important because we all need a listening ear in our lives. The role of mentors, going one step further, is mentor is usually an experienced and trusted advisor who would actually put down dedicated time to speak with you, to offer you career advice, to share their wisdom, to share their experiences with you. They would often give you a rough direction, they would give you a motivational goal to approach, and they would put their own wisdom and their own experiences to share with you. And when we push that further, it comes to sponsorship. So sponsors are at, I would say, the highest level of being effective, and they are someone who are willing to put their name and reputation on the line for you. They share their entire network with you to help you land opportunities. They recommend you to other networks. They introduce you to other people who might make a difference. So I think that it's really important to have the allies, the mentors, and the sponsors in place. Just as an example, I hope you can see this slide. Mentorship would be something like a person saying to me, "Have you tried to speak at conferences and meetings, etc.?" Because they're trying to show me a different way to open up an opportunity for me. Whereas a sponsor would say to me that I have recommended you to this conference. Are you available to do that? So the difference between mentorship and sponsorship is really, really unique, and both of them have got their own benefits and advantages. Just to bring you a statistic, 22% of women are more likely with their rate of satisfaction when they have a sponsor. And if you look at the last two statistics, 119% women they're more likely to have their ideas implemented if they have a sponsor with them. And of course, that means essentially that you progress in your career. Just looking at the time. Yeah, we're good. Some of the classic mistakes that we have seen and what research tells that women specifically make are the first one, we expect others to, spontaneously notice our work and reward our contributions. We don't tell them about it explicitly. We just sit back and we wait that, okay, somebody is going to recognize that I'm doing very good work and somebody is going to reward me for that. Another thing that we tend to do, we are fantastic at establishing connections, at setting up connections, but setting up the connections is one thing, and then driving it to something meaningful, something more productive is another thing. So there's a difference between setting them up and leveraging the relationship, whether that is with a mentor, whether that is with a sponsor, whether that is with another network, whether that is with another senior colleague at the university. There's a difference between creating a relationship and then nurturing it and leveraging it to the next level. Failing to enlist allies from day one. We feel that we've got to be really ready. We've got to know the entire thing. That's only when we can make connections. We can't do them because others will think we don't know enough, which is probably a classic mistake. We learn as we go along, and really not anyone knows everything. And the last and the really important, that we often end up putting our job before our career. So we tend to focus more on getting through day to day, month to month, week to week, rather than seeing the bigger picture, the longer view of where we want to see ourselves in 5 years' time. So that's really important to consider, that you have to think of the bigger picture, the career where you want to be in 5 years, and then maybe work backwards from that, rather than thinking about your day job in terms of where you want to be in the next week. So I think we are kind of moving into the third part now. I'm sure there are many people listening on this call today. Do look around you, look for sponsors, build and foster those connections. Seek men as allies. They're excellent allies, and many men I have spoken to, they're really, really passionate about supporting women in their leadership journeys. Take advantage of mentorship programs. Really important to learn how to say no. We tend to say yes to almost every opportunity and everything, not only opportunity, but every workload that's thrown at us. That's really important, but also at the same time, we've got to keep in mind that no one can do everything, but someone can do anything. So we've got to learn how to say no, how to create those boundaries between how much work we can effectively do, how much work we can effectively deliver on without compromising on the quality. And where do we actually need to step in and say, actually, no, this might not be the right time, or I've got too much on at the moment. Can I revisit this in a month's time? Learning how to say no is not a battlefield. It's not a call for war. It's about creating boundaries so that whatever smaller piece of work you are delivering on, you are delivering to your excellence. You're not compromising on the quality. Really important for women, and I think all of these pointers, they're actually discussions in their own. We have to understand how to showcase our own successes. We have to understand that when a person pays us compliment or organization pays us compliment, how do we use that opportunity to leverage ourselves to move forward in our careers? How do we shout about that? How do we put that up on social media? How do we mention that on LinkedIn? Perhaps one example is that when an article gets published, for example, where do I let people know about that? Do I just sit back and let people find it out about themselves, or do I actively go to people and tell them that, look, this is a piece of work I did, it has been published in XYZ journal? How do we publish our own success? That's a really important skill. Imposter syndrome, I'm sure all of us go through the imposter phenomena one way or the other. We always start to self doubt ourselves. Am I really doing a good job? Am I the best person? Maybe somebody will find out I'm not doing well enough. Maybe they'll find somebody who will replace me. So how to navigate through these feelings of imposter phenomena, which can really impact on our productivity. And I think this one is really important, that when we progress in our careers, we realize and we understand the importance of small steps. It's hard to say what small steps would look like for you. We cannot compare our journey to another person. And I think it's really important to recognize that my career journey, my career to leadership will look completely different to another person's. Like I told you at the beginning, I'm a mother, so mother responsibilities take the first priority for me. For example, today, I have already apologized to you at the beginning that I've got to go sooner. If you look at it, if I did not say that to you, if I just said to myself, no, I've got to be here for the whole hour, I've got to deliver it because I made a commitment, what am I doing actually? I'm putting myself under stress. I'm compromising on the quality of my presentation. I'm actually ruining my daughter's exam. And I'm just causing unnecessary delays and unnecessary unrest for the rest of the day. That is no good. So the importance of small steps is really critical, because that means it shows we're all human. We will all have days when we need to change plans. We will all have days when we need to revisit our strategy. And that's why one thing at a time, particularly in a post COVID world, that's really important. Women leaders, when you are at the top, pay it forward. Don't pull the ladder up. Think about people who are perhaps following you. For many of them, you are the role model. So pay it forward. Help them to get forward in their careers as well. I do want to take the last few minutes to talk a bit about institutional strategies that have a really significant part to play in the career or to leadership for women. Institutions have a responsibility to to produce revised strategies for promotion criteria, keeping in mind the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 that it had on women. If we assume that no, everything is the same as before the COVID world, it is not true. Promotions looked very different maybe 8 months ago as to what they look now. Like we saw at the beginning, women have done much less work. They have written much less articles. They have done much less research. They have published very little as compared to men. So this has to be kept right at the heart of strategies for institutions. When they publish revised criteria, they've got to look at the bigger picture, that can there be any adjustments that can be made, and how can they incorporate those adjustments into the promotions criteria for women particularly. Action learning sets. Institutes should provide opportunities so that colleagues can share and learn from each other. Career development programs, which are really important, particularly for women in leadership. There should be a place for, I mean, I'm sure this one is in place already, to share the success stories and the women who are made their way through leadership, or who are continuously making way through leadership. What are their stories? What have their journeys been like? Because the role modeling has a really important part to play here. If somebody can come forward and talk about the real journey of their leadership, the failures as well as the successes, That makes it human, and that makes other people more likely to consider that, rather than if I come forward and I tell you all the wonderful things I've done in my life and not share my challenges with you. That is of no good. The last bit on this slide is about skills-based workshops. That's really should be an institutional priority to provide skills to colleagues, particularly to women. Like we were discussing earlier, how to say no, for example, how to have meaningful conversations, how to navigate through the imposter phenomena, how to showcase our successes. These skills are really important, particularly for women if we are to progress further in our journey towards leadership. Again, I think very important to provide support to people who are considering applying for promotions, because writing a promotions application is a mammoth task, and the institutions should have responsibility. They should make it a part of their operational strategies to provide more support for promotions. Mentoring programs are really important. Again, I mean, I cannot cover mentoring in this short time. It is a whole workshop. It's a whole set of very, very specific actions that mentoring needs to take through. I have actually rolled out a national mentoring program here in UK, and it's a very full-fledged program, but it's really, really productive because we see women from one part of the country connected to women from another part of the country, and that has got its own merits, its own value. Institutions should invest in women networks, particularly for women, because they need safe spaces for having these conversations, for talking about the challenges that they face in their journeys, in their workplace, and in their families. Because work and family, they're married like this. We cannot separate the two. When we come to work, we bring our whole life to work with us. We cannot come to work and say, "I'm just a professional here. I'm not a mother." It's not true. We cannot separate between work and home, particularly in a post-COVID world when the new normal looks absolutely different to what it was many months ago. And my final reflection for today is this image. I hope this will resonate with you in some ways. I'll just take a 5-second pause here. So you can see this iceberg at the bottom. At the top, it looks like this is this pinnacle of success and this amazing, story of success and the spotlight and everything. But we will all agree that underneath the success, there are actually a lot of rejections. There are a lot of sacrifices. There are a lot of failures, repeated failures, lots of risks, criticism, persistence. Lots of things that actually come together, and they help us get through those failures, and then they kind of get us back onto the path of leadership. It's not a destination, it's a journey, and we continue to be there. So this was my very quick, brief, deep dive into advancing women leadership in a post-COVID world. Thank you so much for listening. I'll stop sharing my slides now, and I think we do have time for a bit of comments, questions, and discussions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madiha, for the terrific presentation, and you're an amazing speaker. Thank you.
Thank you,
Now,
Fabian.
yeah, now the e-house is open for the questions. If you have any question, then please let me know, or you can directly ask to Madiha. So we have one question from Dr. Zafar Sahito. Why the majority of women of developing countries are not like highly professionals of developed country?
I think that's a really important question, and I say this hand at my heart. I was born and bred in Pakistan. I've spent I think, more than half my life in Pakistan. All my education was in Pakistan. It is only very recent that I moved to UK about 15 years ago. And when I moved to UK, I was surprised to see that people have a very different perception of women, particularly who come from Pakistan. And I'll give you an example. For example, I was told that, wow, you speak really good English. And I was surprised that, of course, I speak good English. I have been to schools and colleges and universities in Pakistan where English is the language of delivery. I have spoken English, written English, understood English for a very long time. So why does this surprise you? And then I realized that actually there's a lot of place for the stereotypes that we deal with here in an international platform. But having said that, I do feel that some skills I completely was not taught when I was in Pakistan. And a very quick example of that is research skills. When I was going through my university and college years in Pakistan, the all the research I knew was Control C, Control V, copy paste. And when I came to an international platform like UK, I realized that actually research skill is one of the basic skills I should have in my life. So I do see a skill gap. I do see a knowledge specific gap, which kind of differentiates between women of developing countries versus women in highly developed countries, where there's a lot of emphasis on skills based criteria, a lot of emphasis on acquiring those bare minimum skills. I will have to excuse myself for 2 seconds because my daughter's here now. So I'll just mute myself for 2 seconds and I'll come back. And I'm back. Sorry about that. So, Zafrullah Saib, I really believe that you're right. I think in developing countries, women need to pay a lot of attention to the competencies which would put them forward, which would at least bring them to the same level of excellence and same level of expertise as compared to the women in developed countries.
Okay, Madiha, we have another question. Well, I have one question in connection of Dr. Zafar's question. Being a competent woman in a UK society, so how do you perceive about the environment? Where do you work? Is it the same challenging in UK like we women face in Pakistan?
And I think I will pick up on this and I'll connect this response to Faiza's question as well. I think you're right, Sadia. The specific set of challenges that us women face here in UK, they are very, very similar to what women face in Pakistan. We have got glass ceiling, and I'm talking about a country which is really claims itself to be highly developed. There, there's women still struggle to get to senior leadership positions, and particularly in UK, when I talk about women from ethnic minorities like myself, we've got double disadvantage. We are right at the bottom of the career, and we've got to prove ourselves double. We've got to work double, triple hard to prove ourselves. So that you're right. There are specific set of challenges that we face, but when I talk about overall challenges, they are not very different to women in Pakistan, for example.
मैडम स्पीकर डिस्कनेक्ट हुई है
I'm really sorry. Something happened with my internet, so I'm connected through my phone now.
Please continue.
And I've completely lost my trail of thoughts now. I think what I was saying was that the challenges we face here in UK, they are very similar to the challenges faced in
Mhm.
developing countries. Zafrullah Sahib, I'm so sorry. I know you have written something in the chat window. I'll have to see what it was, and I can perhaps respond to that later on. I think one question was about the role of religion in our leadership journeys. So I think religion is a very personal element to me. And I know that I have got a specific set of my own rules in life, which are guarded by my religion, which are guarded by my belief in my religious concepts, and I am guided by those. And actually, that is the same thing I teach to my daughter as well, that as a Muslim, practicing Muslim, this is your framework, this is what you have to stay within. And the religion has got a really important role actually in our identity. So I am recognized as a Muslim woman who is practicing Islam, and I think I've now joined back. But anyway, I think we're at the end of our conversation. So, yes, we cannot separate religion from our identity. We have to take it forward with us. And this is my response. Whoever is listening, don't compromise on your values. Don't compromise on your core concepts of how you engage with religion.
Okay, Madiha, I have a couple of questions from you. So, is it possible? Do you have time?
I have got 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Okay, okay. So while the impact of the COVID-19 and has been widely felt, so the Women in the Workplace report revealed that the pandemic could set the workforce back by years.
Yeah.
Such as one of my colleagues, she couldn't survive with her leadership position and she was forced. I mean, there were some external factors to resign from that leadership position. So how we can structure the policies to retain a women leadership as a result of this pandemic, and especially this case is from the developing country like Pakistan.
So this is very, very unfortunate, and we have seen this happening all over the world. Sadly, that men and women they have been made redundant, jobs have been lost. I mean, COVID has thrown our lives out of framework. Really, it has been really sad, really unfortunate. The response to that is that it is not going to be a quick fix, unfortunately. It is going to take years before we come anywhere close to recovering from this pandemic, which has affected women globally, more so than men. And I think we will have to take small steps towards rebuilding the structures, the policies. And I think this is kind of a chance and opportunity for institutions and organizations to revisit their so-called very, very inflexible policies. For example, working from home is not possible. Whereas we have seen it is possible. Everybody has worked from home, and actually, we have done a good job. So I think this is the opportunity for institutions to go back, have a think about what the new normal will look like, and where do women come into that new normal. This is where I was talking about the paradigm shift, that this is exactly what I mean when we talk about now redoing all the existing frameworks, existing policies. We need to think carefully about what we have learned from the pandemic and how we can apply that to our frameworks, our strategies, our priorities going forward.
Okay, Madina, my next question. Since the COVID-19 has extended the vulnerability of women to the several risks, risk of unemployment, risk of losing their financial independence, risk of being more exposed to domestic violence. So what findings do you have in the context of UK?
I think I was actually, I put up that in one of my slides and then I deleted that because it was very sensitive. I think the figures show that domestic violence rates has really, really exacerbated during COVID-19. And I mean, I'm not talking even about Pakistan. Now I'm talking about UK. And UK claims itself to be a highly developed country, and domestic violence rates have shot up through the sky. So yes, this has been really, again, very unfortunate, an impact of COVID-19. And I think I do not have any figures at hand right now. I'm sure if you Google it, there are plenty of reports who will say that the domestic violence has gone up, and in addition to that, the divorce rate has gone up by 44% as an impact of COVID-19. So again, like I was saying, it is recovering from this pandemic. It is not going to be a one-day job. It is not going to be a 1 month, 1 year job. It is going to be a long road to recovery, and unfortunately, we are all in it together. It has impacted our careers in most horrible ways. People have lost their jobs, they don't have any running income to bring food to the table. So sadly, this is the reality. But this again, we have to look at the opportunity that it presents, and we have to rebuild ourselves slowly. And I know it's easier said than done. I completely recognize that. But I can only hope that the institutions, the responsibilities of institutions, the state, going forward, they look into this carefully, and they look at the new normal very carefully, and we don't go back to our old ways.
Okay, I think now we are ready to finish this session
Yes.
because you are running short of time.
Yes,
Thank you
please.
so much, Madiha. On behalf of University of Education, I would like to congratulate you for conducting this session. Thank you so much for joining us and for conducting this specific session based on women's leadership and how the pandemic is affecting the women empowerment. And I'm looking forward to work with you in a future about the same gender equality in the context of Pakistan, and we can make some comparison. Thank you so much, Madiha. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much, Sadia, for inviting me, and thank you to colleagues who have joined today. I really appreciate that, and I acknowledge that I will not have answers to every question that you would have posted. I wish I could, but I don't. I think this is a journey we're all in together, and we'll just take one day at a time. The importance of small steps. So
yes.
please do forgive me. I have to excuse myself to take on the motherly responsibilities. Have a lovely rest of the day, and I hope to see you soon again. Take
Thank you
care,
so
everyone.
much, Madiha.
Allah
Take care.
Hafiz.
Allah
Thank
Hafiz.
you. Allah Hafiz.
And thank you so much, participant, for joining this session. Thank you.